boys and girls. We're going to take a look at our assignment from yesterday, which is in our workbook, our practice workbook for page 14-3. So if we take a look at 14-3, it has to do with finding the area. And remember, area is the space that is being used to cover a certain surface, and we use square units to be able to cover that space. So an area is space that is being covered, and we use measurements such as square units, maybe in square inch, square foot, square yard, and if it's large enough, even maybe a square mile. Or if we have it in metric, it could be a square centimeter, a square meter, and if you know what a meter is, it's close to like a yardstick. So if it'd be a 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 meter. And then we also have kilometers, which are similar to miles. So in order to see a square mile, you would have to probably be on a tall building, or you would have to be in an airplane to be able to kind of see what a square mile is. So we are going to talk about how to find the area of these figures. So when we look at square or rectangle, we can use multiplication to help us find the area of a problem or a figure. So in problem number 1, we can see that we have 5 rows and there are 7 squares in each row. So for this problem, I can write a multiplication equation of 5 times 7, and then I would want to make sure that I write this is going to be square kilometers. Now, of course, we couldn't put a square kilometer on an actual page. So we're using, of course, these are not to scale, which means they are not the actual size of what a square kilometer would actually be. But we can get an idea based on we're imagining this being 1 square kilometer. So I have 5 rows and I have 7 squares in each row. Now, if I use my commutative property, I could count by 5s to get my product of 5 times 7. Even though this is 5 groups of 7, that still means I could count by 5s. So I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Because it's much easier to count by 5s than it would be to count by 7s. But I still could do it. I could say 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Now, to write an addition sentence for this, I would write an addition sentence as 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. And please show both the multiplication and the addition sentence. So, again, 7 plus 7 is 14, plus another group of 7 is 21, plus another group of 7 is 28, plus another group of 7 is 35 square kilometers. Now our next problem is a little more complicated because we have 6 rows with 8 squares in each row. Now, we really haven't had a chance to really talk about our multiples of 6 or 8, but we have talked about taking apart larger rectangles and using smaller rectangles inside the bigger rectangle to help us solve for this larger single digit by single digit multiplication fact. Now, if I were to draw, let's just say, for example, let's say I take these first 3 rows of 8 and I use that to help me figure out 3 rows of 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. and another group of 8 would be 24. So 3 times 8 is 24. So that tells me that this top 3 rows of my array are going to be 24. So the bottom 3 rows of this array should also be 24. And when I have 24 and 24, 4 and 4 is 8, and 20 and 20 is 40. So I have 48 square feet in this case. We're imagining each one of these squares as being a 1 square foot. Now, again, I could write an addition sentence to go with my multiplication sentence and check my work. So I know that these 3 groups of 8 are 24, and I know these 3 groups of 8 are 24, and I have too many groups of 8, so it's a good thing I'm checking myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 groups of 8 is going to be 48 square feet. Number 3 is very similar. Again, instead of having 6 groups of 8 or 6 rows of 8, now I have 8 rows of 8. Now, I could use this to help me find my product or my square feet or square inches, in this. All I would need to do is add another row here and another row here, and now I have just created 8 times 8, or 8 rows with 8 in each row. So I could think about it that way, or I could do 5 rows of 8. I think I like that. I could do 5 rows of 8 on the top, because I know 5 times 8 very easily in my head. And I just did 3 times 8 over here. So 3 times 8 was 24. So I broke this up as 3 rows of 8 and 5 rows of 8. That's still 8 rows of 8. So inside of here is going to be 40 squares, and in this 3 times 8 is going to be 24 squares. So I have 24 square inches here, or excuse me, I have 40 square inches here and 24 square inches here. So if I have 8 times 8, I have 64 square inches. And of course, if I add another group of 2 groups of 8 here, 8 plus 8 plus 8, that's 4, which is, and actually I could do 5 because that's what I did up there, which was 40. And then if I do 8 plus 8 plus 8, there's my 5 groups of 8. That was, or excuse me, my 3 groups of 8. Together they make 24 and 40, which is 64. 64 square inches. Now, the next problem you're going to do on a piece of grid paper, and you have grid paper in the back of your in your packet. So make sure you're doing this on a piece of grid paper. I'm going to use my grid sheet. So it says to find the area of a garden that measures 6 by 4 feet. So 6 rows by 4 squares in each row. So if I come to my grid, I have 6 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows with 4 squares in each row. So that tells me I have 6 times 4, and I need to find the square units inside of that figure. Now, we have talked about 4s and counting by 4s, but what if we wanted to break this down just a little bit more? We could break this down as 3 rows of 4 and 3 rows of 4. So these 3 rows of 4 are going to give me 12 in here. Now, the bottom part of my rectangle is another 3 rows of 4, and that will also give me 12 squares in that section of my 6x4 garden. So now that I have broken this up into 2 smaller pieces for myself, I can add 12 and 12 very easily in my head and say 12 plus 12 is 24 square feet. This is going to be 24 square feet. Okay? So that is problem number 4. And you're also going to make sure and do that on grid paper. For number 1, 2, and 3, we know that 3 times 5 is 15. And if 3 times 5 is 15, we have 15 square inches here. And 5 plus 5 plus 5 is going to be 15. 5 times 5 is 5 groups of 5, or 5 rows with 5 squares in each row. And if I count by 5s, that's 25 square miles. And 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 5 is 15, plus 5 is 20, plus 5 is 25. Again, we know that we can use repeated addition to solve for multiplication. We have 2 rows of 8 here, or excuse me, 4. I got ahead of myself. 2 rows of 4, 2 rows with 4 squares in each row. I'm going to have 8 square centimeters, and 4 plus 4 is 8. These are going to be comparing the area of the photos. So I'm going to write Sue here, Allie here, Tom here, and Nan. I'm just going to quickly go through and write a multiplication sentence for this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. And there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each row. And we can solve by looking at this as being 1 square inch. If you noticed here, each one of those squares is considered a square inch. So we're covering, these photos are in square inches. Allie's photo, if you notice here, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in each row, 8 squares in each row. So that's going to be Allie's multiplication fact. Tom's photo is covering square inches of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares in each row. Oh, this is one less than this row. So think about using maybe this one to help you solve for 8 rows of 8 and 7 rows of 8. These are very close to each other. And Nan has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in each. Now, you might want to break that up into maybe 2 smaller rectangles to help you with that particular problem. I'm going to let you solve for the square inches. Make sure you write square inches in here each time. For number 5, you're putting it on the grid. So make sure you have a piece of grid paper handy. You're looking at the area of Sue's photo and Tom's photo. So when you solve for Sue's photo, you're going to use Sue's photo and Tom's photo to come up with a total amount of square inches. Remember to say that this is square inches. We're pretending to add another photo on for number 6. So it says Colleen's photo is 9 inches long and 7 inches wide. Be sure to use your grid paper here. Show that on a grid paper. Then you want to compare Colleen's photos area, the area of Colleen's photo compared to Allie's photo. Allie's photo is right here, and we're going to compare the total area of her photo compared to the total area of Colleen's photo. And explain how you know. So if you are comparing two amounts, one's going to be larger than the other. You want to find the difference between the square units that each one of those is being added to it. Okay, so you're looking for the difference between one photo size to the other photo size. And if you remember, the word difference means you're subtracting the smaller amount from the larger amount. So think about whose photo is larger, and then you can use subtraction to find their difference. These will get turned in with your week 10 assignments. And so if you have any questions, just message me in Schoology and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great Wednesday.